through that. So I just want to make sure that we're able to help out. So we're going to talk about active shooter survival, okay? And that's what it is survival. Because we're going through a situation now where there's so much going on in society. Can't go to a garlic fest, you can't go to the mall, you can't go movie theater. So it is all about survival. Evacuation procedures, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Rave Guardian, a new phone app that's available for faculty and staff. It's a fantastic app. We'll talk about downloading that. And then the district is working on a camera project. So starting into the active shooter survival part, again, a lot going on in society. We're not here to scare you. We're hoping to give you some tools that you can use at work as well as out in the public when you're there. But the first thing is, how many of you traveled in the last couple years by airplane? Yeah. Los Rios must pay well. So traveling by air in the last couple years, do you listen to the presentation? Because statistically it's safe, but do you listen to the presentation that goes on? You know, the stewards get up, they talk about the safety exits, flotation device under your seat, the air masks that fall out. Sometimes we get immune to that, right? We just want to know where the cocktails and the restrooms are. But do we listen to that? Do we know where the exits are on the plane? Do you know how many seats between you and that exit? Is there an exit behind you? So do I know in front of me there's 10 rows before I can exit? Do I know behind me it's 15? I was watching the news this morning and there was a flight going to Hawaii. Wish I was on it. But the cockpit or the plane filled up full of smoke. So there's going to be a time where you may not know what you're supposed to do or where you're supposed to go, but it's all about pre-planning. And a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about today, I need you to pre-plan. I need you to talk to your students. I need you to talk to your staff. And I need you to pre-plan. Because some of this stuff happens so quick. You know, we want it to be a reaction. We want it to be muscle memory. How many of you, when you came in, how many of you, when you came into this room, know where the exits are? Right? I mean, there's plenty of exits in here, but not all of our rooms are set up that way. How about when you go to a movie theater? You know, we all grab our buckets of popcorn and drinks and we sit down. But do you look at the exits that are available out there? Hotel, conference room, restaurant. Again, I'm not trying to say you need to be paranoid, but it's always helpful to have a plan ahead of time. Do you know where your primary and secondary exits are for your classroom? If you go out the door, can you go right or left? If you have a tendency to go left, what happens if it's blocked or that's where the issue is? Can you go right? How many of you know how your doors work? Do they lock from the inside? Do they have a keyway on the inside? Or do they strictly lock from the outside and you need a key for that? So we're going to talk about, again, actions that we're going to take during an active shooter and what the main things are to do that. When law enforcement arrives, right, because it's a whole different game when all the uniforms start showing up. We're not talking about this strictly being a workplace environment. We're talking about this being a survival training, right? Because, again, it can happen anywhere. And where does something like this happen? Where we shop, exercise free speech, right, in our quad areas. Learn, right here on our environment. Worship. We have the Slum Center right across the street. So our department was fortunate to work with the Sheriff's Department for an active shooter training that they recently had in June. Entertain, sports, stadium, again, malls, all kinds of different places. What's going on with active shooters? They're becoming more frequent, right? Just recently we had 3 or 4 of them go off in really over a weekend's period. Why? People are angry. People want revenge, ideology. We're seeing more untreated mental illness out there. Guns. Notoriety. Everyone's trying to outdo the next person. Since 2015, we've had 15 active shooters on college's campus. Okay, so maybe one a year. That's way too many. And from the year 2000 to 2018, 31 active shooters in California alone. And you know, just recently in 2019, we've had quite a few. Active shooter situations are unpredictable, right? There's not a map for that. Totally unpredictable how they're going to happen. They evolve quickly, and they will continue until law enforcement, suicide, or intervention by others. Think about that. They will continue until one of those 3 things happen. 56% of scenarios happen before the police are over before the police can even arrive. So again, that's why we're here today talking about survival. We're not going to be at the malls, we're not going to be at the movie theaters, and even on campus, it may be a fast-moving thing that happens before we can even get there, and we have officers on campus. The recent shooting, police were on scene 30 seconds, and people still died. So it's a quick-moving thing. Again, we don't want to scare you. We just want to give you the tools today to understand and prepare and be ready for an event should it happen. What action should you take in an active shooter situation? Run, hide, fight. And that's what all the agencies, FBI, everybody's working on. Right? Those steps won't always happen in that order. Right? If you come across and the shooter's right next to you, it's all about proximity. It's all about proximity. So if you're right next to the shooter, you might have to fight. If something else goes on, you might have to hide first and then run. Right? So one shoe doesn't fit all in this process. You have to know what to do and take it on a case-by-case basis. Doesn't that look like Ryan Nix up there, by the way? Up in the health center. I showed him that picture. I was like, you got a doppelganger out there. So the first part of this is run. Again, we want to make sure that you have an escape route and a plan in mind. Pre-plan. Again, something goes on in your office. How do I get out? Which directions do I go? Leave your belongings behind, right? We don't want to get in a situation and go, oop, don't shoot. This water bottle, I need this. Come back. Oh, my wife gave me this phone. I need my phone. We want to just make sure that you get out and get out safely. Okay? Help others escape. Right? You've heard fight or flight. So there might be some times where people freeze up. And if you can help them to escape, we're going to ask that you do that. But you want to evacuate regardless of what's going on. Right? You're in charge of you. And if you can escape and get out safely, that's what we want you to do. If you can take somebody with you, perfect. And then warn other individuals that are coming through. So if somebody's going to walk into a danger area, we want to make sure that we warn them and not let them walk in there. Do not attempt to move the wounded. I know it sounds kind of sad, but that's our job. That's for the pretty boys in the big red truck to come in behind us and make sure. Grant, you out there? But that's for us to deal with afterwards, right? We don't want to get in a situation where we're dealing with the wounded and have more shooting or more wounded happen from there. So we will work with fire when they get here and make sure that we get people activated or evacuated when it's safe. Keep your hands visible. Why would police want to make sure that your hands are free and visible, right? We are trained that hands kill, right? If you have something in your hands, and I'm not a good example of that right now. Don't shoot. But we are trained, if you have something in your hands, obviously that we need to be more cautious about that. So if you have anything in your hands, put it down. Raise your hand, spread your fingers, right? Follow our instructions, because you got to imagine that there's chaos going on, but we're going to try and direct you to a safe location, get you the information that you need. So follow our instructions. And if you're running and get to a safe location, that's when you call 911. Hiding out, right? Second step of run, hide, fight. Should be out of the view of the active shooter. You know, that's always the hope. Out of sight, out of mind. Provide protection. You know, can I get behind something like this that will protect me? I know a drape won't stop you, but I mean, you're out of sight, out of mind, but something that may stop a bullet. The big thing now with the run part or the hide part is to make sure that you're not restricting your motions. So if I run, let's talk about Sandy Hook, for example. Sandy Hook, an instructor, teacher, ran into a closet. Fortunate for her, you know, a couple hours later she comes out, she's safe. But her situation is she had no escape route. She was in a position where she couldn't escape if the shooter came into that area. If we go to the Pulse shooting in Orlando, a lot of people ran into the restroom, right? There were shots fired outside there. There was people injured trying to get into the restroom. But when you get into the restroom, is there an exit? Is there anything there to protect yourself? Is there anything there to barricade the door? So the plan now is, yes, if you have to hide somewhere where there's not a secondary exit, and that's your only option, do it. But ideally, if you can hide in somewhere, somebody's coming through this door and I can escape through this door, that's your best option. If the shooter is nearby, you want to lock the door, right? And again, know how your doors lock. If you have a key to it, hide behind a large object, as we talked about. You want to make sure that, you know, if you have lucky enough to have a podium, have a brick wall, have a desk, have a big computer, have something that you can hide behind that's going to protect you. That's what we want to do. How many people out there have cell phones? Everybody, right? How many people out there have pagers still? All right, we got a doctor, and a drug dealer. Good, all right. Good. So we want to make sure that we silence our cell phone. And even at one point we talked about if you're in an area where you've shut out the lights, dimming it so it's not bright. And when we get to the part of our Rave Guardian, there's a texting feature to that you could use. So you don't want to turn your phones off. And then again, remain as quiet as possible. Hoping for the, again, the part of out of sight, out of mind. Okay, eventually you're going to get to contact law enforcement, or if you're fortunate enough to contact law enforcement when you're in a safe position. There's questions that we're going to ask and there's questions that we're going to need answered that will help us as we're coming to the scene. Because you got to realize everybody and their mama's coming. All the outside agencies are coming, FBI is coming, fire's coming. It's going to be quite a few people here. So what was the last known location of the shooter? How many shooters were there? What kind of weapons do they have? Do we have a physical description? If we know the person's wearing a yellow hat and they ran by the gym area, sorry, Derek, if they ran by the gym area we're heading that way and we pass somebody in yellow hat, guess what? We got our suspect. What type of weapons do they have? Are we dealing with rifles, which is more long range? Are we dealing with handguns? Do they have bombs or explosives? And again, how many potential victims are out there? Again, that's good knowledge for us to know, because if we have that information out there, right, we can start getting the pretty boys in the big red truck to come behind us and help out. That's a mean picture right there. But it's very important. There may be a time where we have to fight. You may have to fight. Absolute last resort. And I'm going to say that again. Absolute last resort. And the reason why it is, you may be in a situation where again, we're talking about proximity. You may be in a situation where it's you and the shooter. You don't have time to hide. You don't have time to run. It's going to be fight. And we're going to act as aggressively as possible. This person's trying to hurt you. This isn't a time to pull hair and slap. We're going to act aggressively, right? Here's a situation where somebody is trying to hurt you. Improvised weapons. Look around you right now, let alone your classroom. What do you have around you now that you could throw? Chairs, laptops, cell phone, water bottle. If I'm a shooter and I'm standing in front of you, I'm not. If I'm a shooter and I'm standing in front of you and you start throwing things at me and I'm moving because I don't want to get hit in the face with a water bottle, how effective of a shooter am I going to be? So we have to use improvised weapons. How heavy are the backpacks that our students carry? Yeah, 15, 20 pounds, sometimes more. So we have to use improvised weapons at times. Yell to get other people's attention or distraction from me. And again, commit to your actions. You don't want the one person say, run forward, and everyone else sits back and watch. Let me go back. Let's talk about United Flight 93. So by the time United Flight 93 is going during 9/11, the passengers knew what was going on. They knew that plane was going to be used as a weapon. Todd Beamer was a passenger who helped organize other passengers to go in and attack and make sure that plane wasn't used as a weapon. So last thing they said was, let's roll, and they acted as a group and a team to make sure that plane didn't strike another building or cause more deaths. Let's look around the room, right? What would you do in an active shooter situation? Let's say I didn't take my medication today. It's possible. But I didn't take my medication today, and I start acting out now, right? We have a large crowd here. We have a large group going on. Proximity, right? So this front row, sorry guys, this front row may have to act out towards me. They may use the improvised weapons, throwing things at me. They may attack me. Middle group, you have a little bit more time. Can you hide behind your chairs? Can you maybe make it to an exit? People in the back, got more time, more distance. You can run, right? A lot of exits at the back there that you can get out of here. So again, a lot of it has to deal with proximity and where you're at. And who determines if you're going to run, hide, fight? You do. You're in the situation. I can't tell everybody, hey, you're going to run, you're going to fight, you're going to hide. I can't tell you that. You determine that. And then again, what determines what you do? It's proximity. What action should you take when law enforcement shows up? A lot of people coming. We talked about that. We are very fortunate where we currently work. Station 24, our fire department, is one block down on College Oak, and they are Johnny on the spot if we have any issues on the campus. So I appreciate them. Dayton, Madison, CHP is right there. And again, you may have seen them on campus, big supporters of ours. Sheriff's Department, Auburn and Garfield. So again, our proximity for help, if we have to push the big red button, we're very fortunate where we're at. But our goal as law enforcement is to stop the shooter. Right? Does anyone remember what happened April 20th, 1999? Columbine. Oh, good answer, Columbine. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years, right? But we've learned so much from Columbine. Our response was set up perimeters, put our teams together, and wait for SWAT to show up. In the meantime, people were dying. The shooters had free run of the school. People that were shot were bleeding. So for us, that's changed everything for law enforcement. That's changed to the philosophy of run, hide, fight. So our main goal as a police officer is to stop the active shooter. We're going to proceed to the last area where we heard shots, or we're given instructions or information by some of our witnesses, and our first priority is to eliminate that threat. So who's going to show up? Again, we just talked about it being a very good area for local law enforcement to assist. So all of our agents at CHP, Sheriff, FBI, Fire, Citrus Heights, everybody's coming. Are we all going to look a little different? Sure, we're going to be in different uniforms. We're going to have different weapons. Some might be in TAC vests, some might be SWAT. Some might have rifles, some might have shotguns, pepper spray. And we're going to be yelling commands and orders out because we want to make sure, again, you're safe and we're safe. So we're going to be yelling commands out. Exit this way. Put your hands up. Spread your fingers. Where are they? Who is it? What kind of weapons? If somebody's not cooperating, they may get pushed down to the ground for their safety as well as ours. So listen to our commands. See what we can do to help. I know this is a hard thing during an active shooter situation, but to tell you to remain calm. But it's so much easier if you can. If we can get something from you that's beneficial to us stopping the active threat. So remain calm. Try to get information from you. Put any items you have in your hand down, right? Raise your hand, spread your fingers. Why? Because we're trained hands kill. And we want to make sure that you don't have anything in your hands. Avoid quick movements, pointing, screaming, yelling. We're trained to respond to stimulus. So if people are yelling and screaming and running at us, that's when you may get put on the ground. Again, I know it's a hard situation, but we're going to ask you to try to remain calm. And then it's safe to say if police are running in this way, that it's safe behind us, but we're going to direct you to a safe area. So again, coming towards us, going beyond us, will be a safe location for you. That safe location is a controlled area for us, so we know it's going to be safe. This area is going to be a massive crime scene, right? The whole campus could be a massive crime scene. So it's going to take some time. We're going to need to identify the witnesses. We're going to need to go through many briefings. We're going to need to block the campus off. We're going to have to put up caution tape. It's going to take a little while. So again, we're going to appreciate your patience during something like this, but it's going to take a little while for us to get all the details together and get the scene safe and preserved. How can you prepare for and prevent active shooter? We're just going to talk about pre-planning all day long, right? Take a few minutes now. You know, I know we got a lot of faculty in here, but take a few minutes at the beginning of the semester and talk to your students. Do you know where the police department is on campus? Do you know where the health center is on campus? What are we going to do during an evacuation? What are we going to do during a fire drill? What are we going to do during an active shooter? If there's a problem or an issue on campus, who can help? Can I have a student or two help me if something goes on? Can you use your rave guardian to contact the police department? Absolutely. So take a few minutes and do that. How does my classroom work? How does the door work on my classroom? Does it lock from the outside? Do you know this? Your offices somewhat are usually different than your classroom. You might have the push button lock on the inside. But do you have the key to lock your door? Does your door lock from the outside? Do you have a door monitor? Is there something wrong with locking your door at 9 o'clock when you have class? What happens when the student shows up at 9:05? So have you already talked to them about it? Hey, door shuts at 9, you're not there. Or do you have a door monitor to answer that? Can you lock your door and put the trash can in the doorway? And then that way, if there's an emergency, you pull the trash can out and the door is locked behind it. Things to think of, pre-plan. Where are your two closest exits? Again, I get out of my classroom. Do I go left? Do I go right? If the problem's left, do I know to go right? And where do they take me? And if I end up on the ground floor, if I'm in a multi-story building, if I end up on the ground floor, can I get through a window? Do the windows open? Do I have to break the window? Some of the other rooms we have, do they have adjoining rooms? I was talking to somebody earlier that has a exit to a hallway. But do we have adjoining rooms, and then where do those rooms go to? So am I going to take myself from a room that has 2 exits now into a room that only has 1? But we need to check that. What kind of furniture can I use to barricade? Right, there's plenty in a classroom with chairs, desks, tables, podiums. Does the door swing out or swing in? Regardless, if you build the barricade, it takes somebody longer to get through, and that gives law enforcement better time to get here. What kind of improvised weapons? We kind of went through that. Could we use? Again, backpacks, phones, water bottles, laptops, pens, pencils, whatever's the distraction coming my way is helpful. How about fire extinguishers? Right, most of the offices or classrooms have some type of fire extinguisher. Could you use the business end of it and then maybe strike them at the end afterwards, after you've used it? All that's used to help startle, overpower the assailant. Again, the key, pre-planning. Talk to your students, talk to your staff, know your exits, know your locations, know how you're going to get out of there. Pre-planning does a lot of things. If you have to stop and think, hey, which way do I exit? Where do I have to go? What can I do? It's going to be too late. And if you have a plan ahead of time, it's going to save lives. And our big keys, if you see something, say something. We want to know ahead of time. We don't want somebody to act out on campus and then law enforcement is responding to that. If we know that somebody's having a meltdown or getting into a situation, you think something's going wrong, let us know. We don't have to come in like Rambo and kick things over and knock things down. We can come in and talk. Sometimes just our presence will help that. So if you see something, say something. Scott. Oh, never mind. So I'm going to show a video right now. It's the Run, Hide, Fight video. It is on our webpage. It is on YouTube if you want to watch it again. It does depict some real-life situation, life-like situations. But everything that we just discussed about Run, Hide, Fight is in this video, and it will add to what I'm discussing along the way. So if anyone has any concerns about seeing this video, it's 6 minutes long, 5 minutes and some change. Feel free to step out, but please come back because we have more presentation to cover with evacuations, security cameras, and the Rave Guardian. So go ahead and step out now if you need to. We're going to run through the video. So that's a, do I got juice on here? Ooh, I do. So that's the video. And again, it's available on our website. It's available on YouTube. If you need to watch it again, it's available to you. Even though it was in an office complex, and again, if anyone has stepped outside, can anyone just bring them back in? Because we're going to continue moving through this presentation. But even though this was in an office building, a lot of the rooms look the same as that we have here on campus. So I think it's a good video. And again, remember, all law enforcement are following Run, Hide, Fight. So in summary, your survival depends on your pre-planning. And we've talked about know your exit routes, lock your door, talk to your students, talk to your staff. Remember, again, this is a survival conversation briefing that we're having because active shooters are even over before. 56% of them are over before law enforcement even arrives. And always, always, always have a plan. We're going to move into evacuation procedures. How many people remember the fire drills we had last year? More are coming. So we broke down and did half the campus last year. We're going to do the other half this year at the beginning of the semester as soon as we can. But if evacuation procedure takes place, what are you going to hear? It's going to be an action and a response. So the action might be that you hear the fire alarm go off, you get a Los Rios alert, or the police department responds and tells you you have to evacuate. And the response is that all occupants should evacuate. That's what we're asking for you to do, right? Employees, students, and others, and do it quickly and quietly. Division deans and managers should ensure their employees are informed of the procedures and policies. Employees, you should know your primary and secondary routes out of your classroom, office, or conference room, building, campus. So faculty members, supervisors will take the lead. So what I want you to understand, we're not asking you to do anything that you haven't been doing. You're in a classroom, you're in an office, fire alarm goes off, you're going to clear your area. You're going to find the quickest exit out, and you're going to go 150 feet from the building in a safe direction. So we just want to make sure that faculty and supervisors get everybody out and know the drills. So we want to, again, make sure that everyone knows the primary and secondary exits. And again, if those exits are blocked, you're going to use your secondary one. If you're in a multi-story building, we're going to use the stairs. We're not going to use the elevators, right? You could get trapped in an elevator. You know, then law enforcement or fire has to show up and extract you from that elevator. So multi-story buildings during a drill, during an event, do not use the elevators. We're going to evacuate and take essential belongings, right? As the active shooter, where we're not grabbing anything, take your essential belongings. And walk, don't run. Again, another thing, it's probably hard to do in an emergency situation. But what happens when you run? You could trip, you could injure somebody, could injure yourself, and then again, somebody has to come and rescue you. To ensure the classrooms and offices are clear, we ask that you turn off the lights and lock the door. That helps us as we're responding to know that that area has been cleared. And then assemble 150 feet away from the building in a safe direction. It's hard for us to go out in every building and put a green X on the ground and say, this is where you need to evacuate to. Because what if that is the area that is affected? Right? What if that is the problem area? So we ask you to find the closest area, evacuate quickly and quietly, and head out. Here's for the pretty boys in the big red truck. Right? Another thing is when we assemble or head out, we don't want to block fire hydrants. We don't want to block fire lanes. So as you're exiting, obviously you're going to see if you're going to an area that has a truck in it or the police. So again, find a safe area 150 feet away and move to that location. If you're in the wrong location, you're going to hear from somebody. They're going to say, move this direction, move that way, back up, come forward. If somebody won't evacuate, refuses to leave, that's not your problem. That's ours. Let us know. If you have a student that won't leave, if a class won't leave because they're giving a midterm or exam, let us know, right? So that we can help out and get people moved out. We ask the evacuees to stay together. You know, it's easier for us to know that we have groups, and we give the all clear to come back in. Again, we talked about if somebody from that group wants to leave, for the most part, we're teaching adults. I know there's some kids in our class, but for the most part, we're teaching adults. And if an adult wants to leave, let them leave. We're not going to tackle them. We're not going to sit on them. We're going to let them go. Do not re-enter the building until directed by LRPD or college officials. Here's the thing with fire alarms. A fire alarm goes off, we're responding. As we're responding, we're looking for stimulus. We're looking for people yelling, hey, there's the fire. We're looking for smoke. We're looking for fire. When we get to that room, that building, right, people are evacuating out. We're heading to where the alarm room is, right? Because sirens are going off, lights are flashing. We can't communicate. We need to be able to communicate. And believe me, Station 24 is on their way and wants to respond to this. So we're going to be dealing with the fire department in a couple minutes. So when we get to that location, we have to silence the alarm so that we can communicate. When the alarm goes silent, everyone thinks, hey, it's clear to go back in. And that's not the case. We have to locate what the source was of the problem. Was it a wall unit that somebody pulled? Was it a sensor in the heating ducts that went off? And we have to fix that problem. Once it's fixed, we'll reset it. If everything resets and we get okay from our alarm techs and our fire department, then we will come out and say, all clear to come back in. So there's going to be a moment where things are quiet and you're going to think, cool, I can go back in. Wait for us to tell you what's going on, and we will quickly get you back in. Visually impaired. So we know ahead of time if we have some of our students that are in our class that are visually impaired, right? So let's have discussion about that. Part of your briefing at the beginning of the semester, what are we going to do with somebody who's visually impaired? Can we set up a buddy system with them? You know, are there ways to get somebody to guide them out? We want to go ahead and instruct them and communicate with them and take them to the safe area, right? So the group's going to come out. They'll have a buddy with them. They'll all go out quickly and quietly as they get to their spot. Then we're going to communicate with them. Hey, we're just outside in the quad area. The fire trucks are here. Doesn't appear to be any fire going on at this time. Everything's okay. We're waiting for the all clear to go back in. Hearing impaired. You know, we may have to flash the lights on and off in the classroom to get their attention, but same thing, let's talk about the buddy system. Let's write down some information on the whiteboard before we have to leave, or take a notebook with us to write down what's going on. Quickly, quietly, evacuate the building, go to a safe distance. Crutches, canes, walkers. Some of our folks around here can get around quicker than I can, but we're going to treat them as if they cannot. So we're going to treat them as an injured person. And in a real emergency, you know, we're going to try and do a 2-arm lift if we need to. Again, pre-planning with your students or staff. If not, we can use a chair. You want to find a sturdy chair, preferably something with arms on it, and do a two-person chair lift. If somebody's in a wheelchair and can't move, non-ambulatory, we want to talk to them because there's a lot of concerns with that, a lot of health concerns. Can they be removed from their chair? How are we going to do it? How many people is it going to take to move them? You know, we have to take in consideration leg bags, braces, other issues. Can you lift their wheelchair? Chances are probably not if it's one of these older style wheelchairs. You know, the legs are removable. They may not be able to handle the capacity of being lifted up. So beware if you're trying to lift a wheelchair out. If there's a seatbelt on it, obviously we want to use it. But we have stair chairs on campus and at our centers. So currently there's one on the 3rd floor of Davies Hall. There's one on the 3rd floor of the library. In the basement of the Public Safety Center, there's one. And at Natomas on the 2nd floor. So we are working on getting more stair chairs, actually stair sleds. So I'm working with operations right now. Pretty soon you'll see these big giant yellow bags that actually have a stair sled in it. We're going to put them in the stairwells of all of our multi-story buildings. So you should see 5 or 6 of them popping up. And then our stair chair, we're going to go ahead and mount that as well. Gives you an option. But in my situation that we're looking at, if we're doing a fire drill and fire isn't nipping at your heels, we have time to think, right? We can find different ways to get somebody out of the building if it's a power outage, let's say. But if fire is nipping at your heels, we're going to do whatever we can to get that person safely out. Rave Guardian. How many people have downloaded this app so far? Okay. Now is a great opportunity for you to do it. It is quick, it's simple, and it's free. And you're going to see the posters around campus if you haven't already seen them. They're going up near our red and white emergency flip charts, and eventually will be the main source of our emergency information. Here's inside the app. So the app that you have has the ability to receive our timely warnings. So when we have an emergency on campus, we send out a Clery bulletin. It has that capability to be sent through this application to your phone. Right? Keeps you up to date, keeps you going, because everyone has a cell phone. And if not, you hope at least one person in your class has one. Virtual Campus Safety Escort. So this is a great tool. You can go on there. You can reach out to a loved one, family, classmate, staff member, and tell them, hey, it's going to take me 10 minutes to walk across campus to the far end of the stadium lot to my car. And you can start this timer with them. And in 10 minutes, if you have not contacted them, letting them know that you are safely to your location, they can reach back to you and let you know, hey, you okay? What's going on? So the timer is a great safety feature for us. Two-way communication, right? We're talking about texting. And remember in the video we talked about where somebody is going through, silence your cell phone, but not turn it off. You have the ability to get in there and text, and the texts go to our dispatch center. Now you can do it anonymously, and there are some texts already in there, templates for you to go through. It will still have GPS location. You can shut off GPS location. We're asking that you don't so that we can find you, but you can't text anonymously. What happens if you're in a classroom and a fight breaks out? You know, as a student, as a staff, again, you can contact our department. So great ability to text and get information out without having to verbally communicate. 911. So local law enforcement in your area. So the good thing about this button, when you hit the one that's on the right-hand side there, it doesn't automatically ring. For me, I think that's a good safety feature, because if you press that and, oops, I didn't want to hit that one, it gives you the ability to place the call. So as soon as you hit that button, this other screen pops up and says, do you want to place the call? And again, that 911 will go to your local agency. Has a campus directory on there. So again, it's going to give you very important information that would cover National Suicide Prevention, WEAVE, Veterans Crisis Line, Title IX information, all at your fingertips. You won't have to look that up. It'll have all that information for you. Safety resources. Here's your red and white flip chart. So many of you have flip charts, or you should in your classrooms or your offices, the red and white flip charts that we have. Well, those things get dated, just like anything. You buy a brand new car, it's dated. Buy a new cell phone, it's dated. To keep up to date and current information, we can turn around and have up-to-date information on there that you'll have in your hand during an emergency to be able to review if needed. So that's your new and improved red and white flip chart. And then finally, this is for Los Rios Dispatch. Works just like the 911. Again, you press the one button, it will take you to the screen saying, do you want to place a call? You press yes. Now you're talking to Los Rios Dispatch. Signing up is easy, and again, I encourage you to do that right now. If you haven't, take seconds to do it. If you have an iPhone, you go to the App Store. If you have a Droid, you can go to Google Play. But you can download this app in minutes and have all these resources right at your fingertips. And again, that's where we're headed. That's where our students are. That's where most of us are with technology. District-wide surveillance camera project. So the campus and the district has been working very, very hard to make sure that we're safe throughout the district. So the new process that's coming through is the cameras. We have current cameras now, but they're upgrading the system. And the system is going to benefit us all. So the projected cost district-wide is $3.6 million. So a lot of work is going into this, as well as our outreach centers. It unifies the multiple systems that we have now into one, right, which is beneficial so that we can see everything. Provides the capability to expand, right? Campus is always expanding. We're always building. Lots of projects go on now, so it gives us the ability to add more cameras at a later date. It allows Los Rios to work with outside law enforcement. And some of you know in a recent case here on campus that it's been beneficial for us. But we can share video with our outside agencies and court. Provides us 30 days of video. You know, we can have something in the library in storage for us. So that way, if somebody comes forward and says, hey, something happened over the weekend, I think it was Friday, they're reporting it on Monday, we can go back. Or if it's Christmas break and it happened a couple weeks ago, we can go back. And the estimated completion date is December. So for American River College, we're looking at 58 cameras. Throughout the campus, mainly the parking lots, and it's replacement and new. So it's not that we're getting 58 additional, it's replacement and new. Natomas has 13, and McClellan has 10. Signage will be up. Some of you may have seen it already. We did have to remove one part of it where it talked about monitoring. Imagine you're a dispatcher and you're looking at the district and you have 400 security cameras up in front of you. There's no way for somebody to actively monitor 400 cameras. So we had to take the word monitoring out, saying you're being recorded. Doesn't mean if there's an event going on that dispatch can't go to that camera and monitor it live or monitor how it's happening. But we can't have that word in there if we don't have somebody there 24/7 staring at the cameras. We ordered 126 of these signs. So it'll cover the main campus and it'll cover the outreach center. So look forward for those coming. We're working with FM on that. Wow, we're at conclusion. Thank goodness. Conclusion. So we've covered a lot today, and I appreciate you listening. But we talked about how to survive an active shooter situation. Importance of pre-planning, communication, talking to your students, talking to your staff, right? It's a must. Help people plan ahead of time so that they're not waiting for the last minute or making a bad judgment. How do we evacuate? It's a personal responsibility. It's your personal responsibility. We also need faculty and staff to help get out our other folks, our faculty and supervisors' responsibilities. We talked about Rave Guardian. And again, if you haven't done it, please take a few minutes to do that. You know, when I go around and give safety presentations, I always tell you guys to put in dispatch's phone number, 916-555-2221, press 0. Now it's in your phone with this app. You don't even have to think about that. press the button, you're good to go. And we talked about the district camera policy project. I'm going to quickly move through questions and answers. More or less, it's probably better to catch me afterwards because I know we're a little bit behind time. I'm happy to come to your classrooms. I'm happy to come to your staff meetings. In fact, I got 2 set up for today to answer any questions, walk you through your classrooms, walk you through your offices, give this presentation, a smaller version of it, give you this presentation, or just talk about what concerns you have. So here's my email address, or you can just type in Chris Day in the address book. And there's my office phone number. Please feel free to contact me at any given time. And with that, I want to say thank you. Have a safe and productive fall semester. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rock and roll. Is that okay? Everybody stand up for a second, shake your arms a little bit. You've been sitting a while. Now while you're standing, while you're stretching a little bit, I want to acknowledge your president entering his 6th year, Thomas Green, and we're not going to mourn today. Let's thank Thomas for all he's done at ARC. And go ahead and take your seats while Thomas is still here. I want to publicly thank Thomas for being courageous and announcing very early that a transition was going to happen. That's great for ARC and great for Los Rios, that it gives us time to look at the transition process and be very thoughtful. And I want to reassure you that as great as Thomas is, and he is great, we will find a president who will continue the work that you're doing, that the path will not veer, and the work you've done, we'll find a leader to build upon that. So Thomas, thank you. Thanks for all you've done. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Now, it's been an interesting couple of years. We have changes continually, like leadership changes, with Thomas deciding to, I'm a little envious. How many of us are envious with Thomas and the path that he's going to choose in the next couple of years to get to see the world? Pretty amazing. Before I get started, I want to turn to our board chair, John Knight, for some introductory remarks. And while John is going to the podium, acknowledge 2 other board members who are here with us. Robert Jones. Robert? And Pamela Haynes, who also serves on the Board of Governors.
Well, thank you, Brian, very much. Is this mic on? Can you all hear? Okay, thank you very much. On behalf of the entire Los Rios Community College District Board of Trustees, I'm happy to help kick off your fall semester. Convocation is always an exciting time filled with optimism and enthusiasm. And I would like to welcome all the new faculty and staff that are new to American River College. We had a reception for the faculty on Tuesday, and the information I learned out of there that we have, I think the number was 84 new faculty members, and that was out of a pool that applied of 4,000. So I think we've probably got the best of the best. And I hope all of you had a wonderful summer and are hopefully relaxed and are ready to jump into this new school year. My colleagues and I on the Los Rios board understand the extraordinary amount of hard work that goes into preparing for the start of a new year, and we are grateful for your commitment and dedication. We also know that the past several years have been challenging, exciting, and sometimes exhausting, but we have accomplished much and will continue with many of those changes. And the reason I applaud you in those changes, I'm reading a book right now called The College Dropout Scandal, and I know you probably think that most trustees just read dime store novels, but this is actually something related to it. And in reading this book, you were working on some of the, many of the things that this book talks about and the challenges and the problems with student dropout. And so I think you're on the leading edge. Los Rios and American River aren't mentioned in the book, but they probably should be. But again, reading this has helped allow me to really understand the path that you're on. Because of your hard work and innovative spirit, students starting classes next week are closer to reaching their academic goals more than ever before and with fewer barriers. Because of your compassion and dedication, more students are able to access the wraparound services they need to be healthy, safe, and successful. My fellow trustees and I are incredibly proud of you and can't wait to see what this will bear. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the best chancellor, Brian King.
Thank you, John. Wow, full morning here at ARC. I'm sorry I didn't get to hear Luke Wood, but I know he was amazing, right? Wonderful to have Luke Wood here on campus. So I really appreciate your patience because we had a guest speaker. We're a little bit behind schedule, so I am going to be really crisp and share some points with you and allow you to get to lunch as soon as possible, okay? Changes that are happening involve personnel sometimes, and I want to first acknowledge our district team, the wonderful group of women and men who are spending the day at our 4 colleges. Will everyone stand in the interest of time? We won't introduce you one by one, with the exception of the 2 newest members of our team. And Mario, will you come up as well? Mario Rodriguez. We have 2 Mario Rodriguez. I want to help clarify. So, how you doing, Mario? This is Mario Rodriguez Jr. He works here at ARC. This is Mario Rodriguez, who works at the district office following.
Not senior.
Not senior. Your kid's not junior. So we're really fortunate to have 2 Marios. I ran into Mario yesterday, Mario Jr., and he shared with me his first week here, he got a memo that said he had been promoted to vice chancellor.
I don't have the 3 in my email.
So the good news is that we love having you here. And probably the good news is you're not vice chancellor of finance and administration. So thank you, Mario, for being a good sport. So Mario Rodriguez, our new Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. Tamara Armstrong, our new Associate Vice Chancellor for all things IT. So you may have heard their names. Now you can put a face with the name. Thank you very much. So the last couple years, as Trustee Knight said, have been interesting, haven't they? It's been fun, would you agree? It's been frustrating at times. It's been... Gary Aguilar, are you saying it hasn't been fun? We find the fun in the work. It is inspiring, the work we've done together. It is sometimes causes conflict and sometimes brings us together, but without any question, the work that you have done at American River College in the last couple of years has been fundamentally transformative for our students. And we're going to share some of the information that you've discussed earlier today at the district-wide level about how unbelievably impactful the work has been just in a 1-year period. Unbelievable how far we have come. So the work is very complicated. I want to share with you 3 simple, straightforward principles that explain why Los Rios and American River are widely regarded as among the best colleges, the ARC among the best colleges, and Los Rios among the best community college districts in the United States. 3 principles are: number 1, we put our people, we put all of you first. We never lose sight of that our people are why we are so outstanding. Because we put our people first, we are able to do amazing work for our students and focus on doing what our students need. We put our people first, We focus on what's best for our students, and as a result, the third principle is that we have earned the respect and trust of the communities we serve throughout the capital region. So when I talk about putting people first, I mean we have a very deep commitment to treating people fairly and making ARC and Los Rios a great place to work. And how many of you have flown in the last year or so? You know, the experience flying, I really like a comment from Richard Branson, who is the CEO of Virgin American Airlines. Has anyone flown Virgin American? Very well thought of airline. And I think he summarizes what good organizations do. By putting people first, it allows people to do magical things for the people they serve. And there is no question that we talk a great deal about being student-centered. How many of you have heard that phrase, student-centered? I firmly believe that to be truly student-focused and student-centered, it starts with the focus on our employees and putting our people first. So we can't be student-centered if we are not valuing and honoring the people who work in our organization. So continuing the airline theme for a moment, how many of you, let's be honest, how many of you during the safety instructions pay careful attention? Okay, some of you do. How many of you have your headphones on? Honestly, I think more people probably aren't paying attention, but I think the instructions that we hear when we're flying have a lot of parallels to the work that we're doing together. And how many of you fly Southwest? I fly Southwest exclusively unless there's no other choice. And have you been on flights where they have some fun with the announcement? So if there's a sudden drop in cabin pressure and the mask drops, the first thing that they're very serious about is what do? You put your mask on first, and that's the serious principle here on we have to take care of ourselves and we have to take care of each other's first, or we won't be able to take care of students the way they need us to. But I've heard flight attendants have some fun with the next part. So how many of you have flown with small children? How many of you have had 2 little kids with you? I've done that and survived. And what do they say? I've heard a flight attendant say, if you're flying with 2 small children, first of all, what were you thinking? And secondly, if you have 2 small children, what advice do they give you about who to put the mask on first? What do you think would be the best advice? The one you like the best? I didn't say that, I'm just repeating. The one you like the best. The one I've heard that always makes me laugh is the one that has the highest earning potential. Put the mask on that kid first. So we've had turbulence in our work together. So the broader point is we need to make sure that we're taking care of each other and making sure that our needs are met. Otherwise, we won't have the energy that our students need us to have in addressing their needs. Now, we have a lot of new men and women here today. If you've joined ARC in the last year, stand up and remain standing. If you've joined us in the last year, wow. Now, remain standing. I'm wrapping up my 7th year, so I joined Los Rios in February of 2013. If you joined Los Rios and American River in February of 2013 or beyond, so if you're in your first 7 years, stand up. All right, that is amazing, the new energy and the fresh eyes that have come to ARC. Now, everyone who's seated, that means that you've been here longer. So part of your task is to identify someone who has been here a shorter amount of time and share why it is that we are so extraordinary in putting our employees first. Going back to the Great Recession of 2008, how many of you were working here in 2008 or working in community colleges? It was a tough time around the state where community colleges throughout California were making really tough decisions, and in balancing their budgets, what most districts did is look at layoffs of full-time employees. Now, those of you who are new, how many full-time employees were laid off in the Los Rios district in the aftermath of the Great Recession? 0. So that reflects our Board of Trustees and our constituent leaders working together and doing what's right for our people. So let's give everyone who was involved at that time a round of applause. We don't just talk about putting people first in the good times, in the darkest times in community colleges in many years during that devastating recession. We had that commitment to treat our full-time employees well and honor their service. In recent years, one area of significant concern has been the new funding formula. So we're in the second year of the new funding formula. A lot of unknowns about the new funding formula, and a lot of concern that the new funding formula would result in us running off a fiscal cliff. No one knew for sure. 90% of the new funding formula is a lot like the old funding formula. The 10% new caused concern and the fear that our revenues might be substantially reduced by the new funding formula. I'm happy to share with you that we haven't fallen off a fiscal cliff under the new funding formula, and we haven't had a huge windfall either. But our revenues this year under the new funding formula are larger than they would have been had the funding formula not been changed. And many of you who have been here for a while had good news recently that you had a retro check of a very robust 6%. That's a direct reflection of the new funding formula working out okay for us. So 6%, is that worth a round of applause? And other groups also had ongoing increases as well. So that idea of putting employees first, part of it involves compensation and thinking about sustainable, meaningful ways of compensating our employees. Now for the newer employees, you might not know all you need to know about the bucket concept at Los Rios. And that means that 80% of new revenues go back to our people and putting our people first. So we all have a shared interest in looking at what the funding formula is and thoughtfully determining how we can maximize the resources so that we can keep our people first in terms of compensation and benefits. Now, that does not mean that we're sacrificing our students to maximize revenue. When you look at the 10% of the new funding formula that provides some incentives, there are areas that are good for students that also are good for our funding. For instance, having associate degrees for transfer graduates, having more ATD graduates is good for our students. It's also good for our revenues. And I had a chance to watch Robert Nelson, the president of Sacramento State, giving his fall college address. And he emphasized that our ATD students who transfer to Sac State are completing more quickly than their native juniors. I mean, think about it. That's awesome. So associate degrees for transfer are a way that we can increase our funding even if our student population doesn't increase. Serving historically underrepresented students at the heart of that equity conversation you had with Luke Wood earlier today and have had for the last year and beyond at ARC, and awarding more Pell Grants are all areas where we can increase funding and also benefit our students. So there's a sweet spot under the new formula and working together to make sure that we're accessing all the resources we can to put our employees first and ultimately to help our students. So does anybody know when the next recession will start or if it has already? I don't want to be, hard to tell. If you knew for sure when the next recession was going to start, you probably wouldn't be here today because you would be able to make millions of dollars by speculating on the future. But we know the next recession will come. And the good news is that we were able to make it through the last recession because of thoughtfully using reserves. And our board, our trustees, our constituent leaders have worked together, and we've completely, over time, rebuilt the reserves that allowed us to get through the 2008 recession. So when the next recession comes, nobody's recession-proof, but we are as recession-resistant as any community college district in the state of California. So that's another cause for celebration. We don't look forward to the next downturn, but we're ready. We're ready together for that next downturn. And immediately before I arrived today, thanks to the commitment of our faculty asking for safety training and the unfortunate reality that safety training is in need, we had our captains and are having our captains at all four colleges work through helping us be better prepared for the unthinkable happening. And this is not a single time where we're going to be focusing on safety. In my 7 years, I haven't seen a single survey of our faculty and staff where safety was not a top 3 concern. So we will have challenges in determining the best way to work together to be safe. But the reality is, in today's world, hardly a day goes by where there isn't a story again that confirms that safety is very important. And we want to be prepared as well as we can when, in the event that the unthinkable happens. So we put our employees first in terms of compensation and benefits. We put our people first in terms of thinking about how we can be as safe as possible together if a tragedy does strike. And because we put our people first, we are able to really focus on our students. And I was thinking today, the years fly by. I have been a president, superintendent, or a chancellor in a California community college now for more than 15 years. So I have seen a lot of data. I've seen a lot of initiatives. We've all seen things come and go, the flavor of the month. And a lot of those changes really have not made a difference that we can measure and celebrate the way we would like. 3 years ago, we agreed as a district that we were going to build pathways for our students. Our number one priority in our district strategic plan was to build pathways for our students. And at American River College, you are incredibly committed to guided pathways for our students, and want to celebrate that ARC was one of a small group of colleges who were part of the expansion in guided pathways in our system. And the reason that you are doing guided pathways is because equity is in your DNA. You know that our students' fate should not be determined by their zip code, by the color of their skin, by their sexual orientation. You know that we need to look very deeply at equity issues and have courageous conversations, which you have, but more importantly, you've taken courageous action together. And let's get very much into an example where your courageous actions have had a tremendous impact in establishing pathways and moving towards guided pathways. I want to get to the data on completion, on enrollment and completion in math and English. And this is district-wide data. I know you have had today and will have other chances to dive deeply into the AR-specific data. But a year ago, you courageously decided that we were going to get this done, that placement tests were not the best measure of deciding whether students should be in transfer classes, and you did something about it. And in terms of enrollment in transfer level writing, before you made these changes, about 5,200 students a year, 5,225 students in 17-18 across our 4 colleges were enrolled in transfer level writing. 1 year later, with the changes you've made, that has increased to 7,239 students enrolled in transfer level writing, and we'll tease out the numbers. Even more students would be placed into transfer level English writing. This is the number that actually enrolled. So in 1 year, if you do the math, that's a 38.5% increase in enrollments. And the question may be, well, more students enrolled, how did they do? And that's the real headline. 1,220 students across our 4 colleges, first-time students, 1,220 more students completed transfer English in 1 year than the year before. That is amazing. Give yourselves a round of applause. Let's take a look at math as far as enrollment in transfer level math. So the numbers for 17-18, the students who enrolled in transfer level math, about 1,900. And then after these courageous changes were made, 3,200 students enrolled in transfer level math. If you've been watching this data for years and years, we've celebrated 1 or 2 or 3% increases. If you do the math on the increase in enrollment for our math students, that's almost 2/3. That's a 65.3% increase in 1 year. That is cause to celebrate. That's an example of our people who we put first making magical changes on behalf of our students. And the number of math students who completed is 759 more in math, 749 in 1 year. So that is simply astounding how much change has happened in 1 year, and the impact that that is going to have for years to come on those students who have now completed transfer math and transfer English. They will complete in higher numbers. They will achieve what they tell us is their goal, to have a certificate or a degree, either to help them in the world of work or to help them in completing their higher education when they transfer to Sac State or other partners. So we really should celebrate. The work's been hard. maybe it hasn't always seemed fun, but the outcome is fun when you look at what's happening for our students. So the work isn't done, and I want to next talk about 3 areas for innovation and enrollment that I think you're excited about. And I know we should be excited about. First of all, dual enrollment. How many of you have a kid in high school at home? A lot of parents of high school kids. Wouldn't it be awesome if your kid could graduate from high school and at the same time be awarded an associate degree? That's the promise of dual enrollment. The more units that students are able to take while they're in high school, the more quickly they're able to complete the baccalaureate degree. And again, dual enrollment is very much an equity issue, that students of color will benefit even more than majority students from having the opportunity to experience college-level success while they're still in high school. So dual enrollment, ARC has been one of our leaders across the district in dual enrollment, focusing on career technical education. Thank you for that. Yeah, a round of applause for CTE and dual enrollment at ARC. We have only scratched the surface at ARC in our 4 colleges in dual enrollment. There is great opportunity for dual enrollment to address equity issues and help our students complete more quickly by taking college classes while they're still in high school. The second area of opportunity is open educational resources, OER. And at a high level, many of you are familiar with the concept of zero-cost textbooks, the zero textbook cost logo on some of our classes. How many of you are involved in a class that's ZTC at this point? Oh, wow, that's impressive. Raise your hands high. I want to be clear that I understand, as someone who spent more than 10 years in the classroom, having quality course materials is crucial. Not every class will be a ZTC class. We want to be very thoughtful in helping you identify resources that may have a lower cost if zero cost is not an option. But to get a sense of the magic that has happened for our students in the ZTC effort, if you add up the savings just from last year to this year in courses that are now ZTC classes, that's over $500,000 district-wide, over $500,000, $592,228. Isn't that exciting? In ZTC. So as I said, not every course can be ZTC. Another great partnership that many of you are aware of is our partnership with UC Davis and the Libre Text project. How many of you are familiar with Libre Text? How many of you are using Libre Text? If some of you are, the book I'm holding in my hand came into my hands very serendipitously. Is that a word? It was good luck that I was at Sac City and walking across campus, and I saw a man and a woman who both had t-shirts on that said Libre Text. And I stopped them and I said, I'm really interested. They were carrying a box too. I said, I'm really interested in Libre Text, that our colleges are involved in the grant, and I'd like to know more about it. And they said, well, who are you? And I told them what my role was and why I was really interested in OER. And he said, I have a book for you. And he took this book out of the box. This is an organic chemistry book. How many of you have taken organic chemistry? How many of you teach it? Okay, we have both students and teachers here. If you go to Amazon.com and pull up this book, what's the price for a new book from a traditional publisher for organic chemistry? $200, I saw almost in the $300 range for a new book. The used book you can get less expensively. This book is a really inspiring example of the Libre Text project, where at Sac City, Diane Bennett, a faculty member in the chemistry department, have adopted the Libre Text book. So if you get this book online, what does it cost? It's free. And Dan is an expert. You should be giving this part of the presentation. Our librarians have worked hard, and others. If you get the printed book, this is that's a pretty hefty book. What do you think that bad boy costs if you buy the hard copy? $10. $10 to print. The materials are free. 16 different faculty, I think actually 16 colleges are represented across the country with different chapters that are selected. So you're able to actually select the topics and chapters within the book, so there's academic freedom within that discipline. And you're able to put together a book that is either free to students or it costs $10 to get a hard copy. So that book, over the last 5 years, one teacher has saved her students over $200,000 using that Libre text. So ARC is also involved in that grant. I encourage all of you to look and see if there are quality materials available in your discipline. And let's have another moment of candor. I spent time in the classroom. If you have a textbook that you like, that meets the needs of the students, and there are really good supporting materials, quizzes and lectures and other things, there is no question there is work involved in moving from the book you have now to the book that may be lower cost for students. And my pledge to you is that if we need resources to do that, whether it's professional development or other sorts of resources to do that, if we can find a way to save $200,000 over and over again, we will make the investment it takes to help our faculty evaluate the open educational resources that are available to them in moving forward. Okay? Let me know what you need to do that, with the understanding that one size doesn't fit all, and having the freedom to choose the right materials for your class is very important. So dual enrollment, open educational resources. I want to celebrate at ARC that you have been the leader in our district in online education and online ARC. Thank you for being the leader. Online education is here to stay, not just in our district, but across the state of California and across the country. More and more students are enrolling in online classes, and our enrollment overall is stable. We're not up, we're not down, our enrollment is stable. And earlier we talked about 90% of our resources from the state are still based on how many students we serve. So access still matters, both in terms of meeting the needs of the community and also in terms of how we are funded. So a couple of really sticky numbers on ground versus online. The first number is students who are taking only on-ground classes. So if we were to walk out Monday and find students who are taking all of their classes here on a campus physically, down 5.4% district-wide, year to year. So the number of students who are only taking classes on ground is down substantially. Now, if our overall enrollment was down 5.4%, Convocation today would be very different. We wouldn't be talking about retros and ongoing salary increases. How can that be that on-ground enrollment is down that much, but we're still flat overall? You know, the math isn't that complicated. 12.4% increase in students who are taking only online courses. So ARC has been a leader. Where is Marcia? Marcia and her team have worked very, you want to acknowledge, the whole team stand up. So important, and when we're thinking about equity, to have a robust inventory of courses. We're there now. We do have a robust inventory of courses across our 4 colleges. The focus now is on assembling associate degree for transfer degrees fully online. So in the coming months, you'll hear more about a focus on rolling out 1 degree initially and then many more degrees so students can fully complete an associate degree for transfer online. Then beyond that, we have and will have conversations with 4-year public institutions about ways that students can take our ADT to a baccalaureate granting institution, and if they need to, complete their degree fully online for their BA. So the equity issues here are really underlined by the next 2 statistics about our students who are taking courses online. What do you think? More women or men taking online classes? How many of you think more men are taking courses online than women? How many of you think more women are taking? Very perceptive group. So were you perceptive because the number was already up? 2/3 of our online students are women. And in terms of our historically underserved students, sometimes the perception is that majority students are more likely to take classes online, but one data point shows that's really not true, that 23% increase for our Latinx students taking only online classes from last year to this year. So that's twice the rate of our overall student body as far as the movement towards online classes. So I want to quote my friend and colleague Melanie Dixon. Students are voting with their fingers in online classes. That will continue. We will always have a very important, robust course offering on ground, but the area of growth now and for the foreseeable future is online. So that needs to be a focus. We need to follow the leadership of ARC and work together to make the inventory of our courses across the 4 colleges even easier to access and have degrees that can be completed fully online in a way that our students can navigate. So 3 really exciting areas of opportunity in working on behalf of our students in dual enrollment, open educational resources, and online education. So we're innovators, we're ahead of the curve, and that takes us to the 3rd point. That's why our community is so supportive of the work we do. We've earned the respect and trust of our community. Resources are important to take care of our people in terms of salary and benefits. Resources are also important to build buildings like the one we are in right now. This building was made possible by our 2 bond issues in 2002 and 2008. The gorgeous building that is getting closer and closer to completion, also made possible by the support of our local community. So in those 2 bond issues, $740 million of capital funds were provided by our friends and neighbors who supported those 2 bond issues. Let's give the community a round of applause. So we're nearing the end of those 2 bond issues, the funds that were provided, and are now thoughtfully exploring the possibility of a 3rd bond issue. And we have members of our Board of Trustees here today. In the coming weeks, they'll be asking hard questions about our facilities needs and about the option of whether now might be the time to move forward with a 3rd bond issue. Tentatively, if the board decides the time is right, part of the discussion has been about March being a good time because of the presidential primary in California. And if the board does decide to move forward, the issue would involve no tax increase. That really is an important point to share with your friends and neighbors if the board in October decides that the time is right to move forward after asking the appropriately difficult questions about the timing. So our board will have a study session in early September to examine what the needs are and what the alternatives are in moving forward. And if the board determines at that point to have a further discussion, the timeline to get on the March ballot would require action by the board in October. So as you see, Trustee Knight, Trustee Haynes, and Trustee Jones, they will be doing a lot of heavy lifting in the coming weeks, looking at what is best for our district moving forward in terms of another bond issue. Now, if that happens and the voters are supportive, $650 million would be the amount that would be the result. How many of you have worked on developing the facilities master plan here at ARC? I know many of you have. You've identified what the needs are. If you identify the needs identified for ARC, CRC, FLC, and SCC, you are probably not shocked to learn that the total needs are even more than $650 million. In fact, the total needs are over $1 billion. So if we do move forward in seeking voter approval and are successful, we will, as we always have really thoughtful, iterative discussions about prioritizing projects within that $1 billion list and identifying projects that will have the greatest impact for our students and our community if we're in that scenario. So great work here and across the district on identifying facilities needs. And in addition to our community support through the bond, we've had great support from Governor Newsom and the legislature. How many of you got to see Governor Newsom when he was here this summer? So the governor's been at 2 of our colleges, and I've just got this sense he may be back to one of our colleges before too long. And he really comes to our colleges because he appreciates the work that you were doing. And one day this summer, we got really good news. How many of you have ever had $100 million good news? I don't think I ever have before. But on a Sunday this summer, we got the news that Governor Newsom was releasing state bond dollars that resulted in $100 million coming to the Los Rios colleges. And at American River College, 2 projects that were on hold will now be funded, the Career Technical Education Project and the next phase of the Natoma Center. So that is a lot of good news. wonderful news that we'll continue to be improving facilities for our students. So a last area where our community has been incredibly supportive is the Los Rios Promise program. 2 years ago, we shared the vision that seemed like a really heavy lift, that we wanted all of our first-time students to be able to attend fee-free. Remember that? We talked about, the goal was the 5 F's, fee-free for first-time, full-time. The good news is, with help from the state legislature, we've achieved that goal. Now all of our first-time students can attend fee-free through the statewide promise. Thank you. What that means is that when we are raising funds through our private philanthropic efforts, those dollars can help students with needs beyond tuition, food, housing, childcare, all the barriers that we know are tremendous barriers for our students. And we had wonderful news last month that 4 of our corporate partners provided pledges in the largest single amount we have ever had to help students with financial barriers. So Sutter, if any of you, if Sutter is your healthcare provider, thank anyone at Sutter. They were our lead investor. Also Safe Credit Union, another leader, Wells Fargo, and VSP, the Vision Service Provider Company, in total pledged $750,000 to invest in our students to provide scholarships to reduce those financial barriers. So that's incredibly exciting. That is just the beginning. We are working with other partners in our community to help provide those resources for our students. And back to the point on open educational resources, if you wonder what you can do to help, I know all of us care deeply about our students. If you can look at your department and your course, and if you could reduce the course fees even $10, the materials fee, it might not be realistic to be a 0 textbook course, but if you can reduce that, we've already had millions of dollars. And the example of the organic chemistry book, 1 teacher, 1 book, $200,000. That's the sort of impact that you can have through open educational resources. So as we start a new semester, I have never been more proud of the faculty and staff here at ARC and across the district. You are doing courageous work for our students. You appreciate our commitment to putting our people first. Because you are a priority for us, you are doing phenomenal work for our students, and because that phenomenal work is recognized by the communities we serve, we have tremendous support that flows back. So this is going to be an incredibly exciting year. The work that you have already done is just the beginning. We're going to build on that. We're going to keep working hard because our students need us to do that now more than they ever have. So thanks for your indulgence in running a little overtime. Let me know anything I can do to help you. Look forward to seeing you throughout the semester. Have a great rest of the day.